The night was a blanket of anxiety wrapping the kingdom of Amorji in its vagueness. And just when the boundary between the living and the dead emerged, NONYELUM and Ekene whispered in her heart. "I blame myself for what has happened," Nonye said. "I should have told you about Ngene earlier. You have said that more times than I can count," Ekene rebuked her. "It was not your fault, and beating yourself over it will not change anything. You do not understand, Ekene. I do. We should think about how to salvage the situation, not cry over something that already happened." NONYELUM breathed. Her shoulders dropped. Ekene was right, she thought. How could she have known it was time for the goddess to choose a companion? Her guilt lightened as she tried to make peace with herself. Silence simmered and streamed, punctuated only by the buzzing of insects and bats squeaking and screeching outside. "How powerful do you think Ngene is? What are our chances of defeating her?" Ekene questioned. NONYELUM cleared her throat. 4 villages surround Amorji: Ameke, Amoria, Amafo, and Amanko. These villages are each guarded by a river. The laws governing these rivers are so strict whoever violates them, whether intentionally or unintentionally, pays with their life. No negotiation or appeasement whatsoever. Ngene is the goddess of these 4 rivers. Once every full moon, elders from each of the 4 kingdoms gather and offer human sacrifices to the goddess, strengthening her powers and stronghold on the people. And this has been going on long before we were born. Ekene swallowed hard and gritted his teeth. He needed no further explanation. The goddess was more powerful than he could probably imagine. But since she is the goddess of these 4 kingdoms, why does she choose a companion from Amorji? The villages gained autonomy from Amorji, which still stands as a central kingdom. The Ngene River of Amorji birthed the other 4 rivers. Ekene slapped his leg lightly to fend off a persistent mosquito, and then he leaned back on the chair. "I am neither from Amorji nor any of the other 4 kingdoms," he said. "Why then was I chosen?" It sounded more like a complaint than a mere question. His voice quivered a bit as he spoke. NONYELUM was probably just as confused as Ekene, for she let out a deep sigh and said, "I do not know. I have not heard anything like it before." "What if I return to my kingdom?" Ekene suggested. "Maybe she would choose someone else." NONYELUM glanced at the lantern on the alcove somewhere above their heads, as if drawing from it the inspiration to answer. "It was not a mistake that you were chosen. Ngene knew you were not from any of her kingdoms. Yet she chose me," Ekene snapped. "Yes," Nonye affirmed. "And that is why I think it is possible to stop her." Ekene's brows narrowed. He looked at Nonye as though she had just said the craziest thing he had ever heard. "How do we do that?" he asked rather unenthusiastically. "Just before my mother died, she took me to a woman far in the forest of Umodiala. Till date, I am still not sure why she took me there, but she said it was for my own good, and that I would understand when the time was right. The woman performed some rituals over me." "Okay, so what does she have to do with Ngene?" Ekene interrupted. He probably did not realize he was getting agitated, but NONYELUM continued. "While I was in her chambers, I heard her whispering to my mother about Ngene. I believe she knows something about the goddess that could help us." Ekene recoiled, steadying his breathing. His anxiety gave way for a moment. "When are we leaving for Umodiala?" "At dawn," Nonye answered. "In a short time the signs will begin to appear, signs that someone has been marked. We must hurry before it is too late." Clouds gathered like a curtain of secrets, foreshadowing ominous tidings and creating an ever-changing landscape of uncertainty. Lightning split the clouds with reckless abandon, bringing with it rumbles of thunder. From the east to the west, every corner of Amorji felt the clouds squeak with the force of a thunderstorm. Crows cawed in the distance as nature threatened their very existence. Amalanze, the chief priest of Ngene, stood before his shrine, gazing skyward. Confusion suffered his wrinkles as he searched for answers amidst the lightning and rumbles, while consistently shaking his crozier. The whole community shook, sending those on their way to the farm back to their houses. Those already at the stream ran for safety. NONYELUM and Ekene had begun their journey. They felt the chaos rampaging Amoji and threatening to reduce her to a pile of ash. The signs are here, NONYELUM had noted, but they had headed on. They journeyed through the secret paths heading toward the forest of Omimi. NONYELUM had gathered the resources they needed, but for how far the journey was, she doubted there would be enough. Ekene could not stop his mind from wandering. Having witnessed the thunderstorm, he feared a powerless mortal like him stood no chance against a fiery goddess such as Ngene. How could a mortal fight a goddess, he questioned in his mind. He was convinced this journey would be a waste of time. He could not see the possibility of the woman in the forest of Umudiala standing up to Ngene. He only had to embark on the journey for Nonye's sake. He thought she believed in the woman and her powers, but he was wrong. NONYELUM knew it was impossible to stop Ngene from claiming her prize. The moment Ekene picked up the golden bracelet and put it on, he became hers, soul and spirit. But Nonye thought they could still put up a fight, and this was for a reason she herself was finding difficult to admit. NONYELUM and Ekene trudged farther into the forest of Omimi. As they went on, strange winds blew against the trees, forcing them to sway frantically. Goosebumps spread on their skin like ripples radiating from a stone thrown on a water surface. Strange laughter and calls echoed through the forest. Although terrified, Nonye and Ekene stood their grounds, refusing to be intimidated. And when quiescence returned, they took to their heels. It had begun to rain in Amoji, the aftermath of a disastrous morning. The sky had not promised rain for days. In fact, the kingdom was fast approaching the dry season. But the sky decided to give a downpour. It came in great torrents, lasting for more than an hour. When the rain subsided and the clouds faded, the community was treated to a wealth of snails scattered all around, so many that everyone filled their baskets. Abalanze had just entered his shrine when he saw a big snail beside the calabash of revelation. He knew it was a mystery. A snail could not have just appeared in his shrine for nothing. "What does this mean?" he mumbled. "What is going on? Is this a sign of good tidings for the people of Amoji?" Ngene eze nwanyi. Ngene ara na-azụ nwa. Ngene ezigbo nne. Ngene isi mmiri Amoji. Please tell me what this sign means. Abalanze continued to hail and pour libations to the goddess while seeking answers to his questions. Meanwhile, NONYELUM and Ekene had decided to rest at the foot of a tree in the forest of Omimi. They had drank some water while soaking in some cool breeze. Ekene had a question tugging at his mind, and he thought this was the perfect time to ask. What will happen to me if the woman at Umudiala fails to help me? Nonye was silent. She knew the answer to his question, but the mere thought of it had her cursing in her mind. Ekene gazed at her. He could tell his fate by her silence. Then she answered, "I hope and pray that by the gods we may find the help we seek." Ekene processed that answer quietly before asking again, "Do you think we will? We have to stay positive." Her voice came as though she was reprimanding him. The silence that followed was a storm brewing inside, with turbulent emotions and unspoken words swelling beneath the surface. Suddenly, Ekene yelled, gripping his leg. "What is it?" Nonye asked, scrambling to her feet. "A snake! A snake! He bit me!" Ekene cried as the pain seared through him, veins pushing hard against his neck and temple. Nonye quickly grabbed a stick nearby and looked around. She went behind the tree, but she found nothing. She dashed back to Ekene, who continued to groan in pain. "Stay still," she commanded. What do you want to do?" intoned Ekene vocally. "You asked too many questions, just try and be still." Nonye knelt next to the injured leg and took hold of it. She lowered her head and put her mouth on the point he was beating. She sucked hard on it and spat out the venom. She did it once again and again. Ekene's face flattened with surprise. For a moment the pain subsided, not necessarily because of the venom that was being sucked out, but a chance to feel what NONYELUM was doing. He could not believe she would go that far just to see him alive. It only watered the seed of emotion sprouting in his heart. NONYELUM hurried deeper into the forest and soon returned with some leaves. She mashed it between her hands. It gave Ekene a feeling of deja vu of the first day they met. "This will hurt," she warned. Ekene sucked in air through clenched teeth as Nonye placed the mash on the wound. She tore out a strip of cloth from the wrapper in their bag and tied the wound. This place is no longer safe, she noted. We have to keep moving. Ekene nodded. It did not seem like he had much of a choice. Nonye helped him to his feet. He groaned all the while as they journeyed on to the forest of Umudiala.